you. Excited to be here. We'll go through introductions in a minute, but what do they call you? Professor Hilliard? Dr. Hilliard?
Sometimes when I'm around, I don't know if they
I call him Tony, but his passion for what he does for you all is what gets me excited about coming here. He was texting like, hey, looking forward to you being here. I said, I literally love this. This is my most fun part of all the things I've done in my career, getting to talk to students, learning about what you all are looking to do. It reignites me for like the passion of why I got in. So I remember being in your shoes and what that looked like of where do I go to start my career? Like, I wish I had insights like this because I just kind of, no pun intended, lucked into getting into sports. And it's given me a lot of blessings, which we'll talk through here in a minute. So I'll give a quick background on myself and Brittany as well. And then I'm actually going to go around the room because it's a small enough group just to learn about you. Because I want to know, like, what roles are you in? What do you want to do when you move on? So as I talk through my presentation, which is more about B2B sales and driving revenue, which no matter what part of the business you're in, everyone's trying to drive ticket sales. Everyone's trying to increase revenue. Maybe they're directly doing it through sales or you're supporting sales. So that's one thing we're going to talk through. But I'll give my backstory because I think it helps people understand, like, what does a journey look like to move up through sports? And now me, even adjacent to sports in an entrepreneurial role, like, what does that look like and how did it all come about? Real quick before I go, can the people on Zoom, can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure this is such great technology. This is
I know.
great. All right. So I grew up, I'm a military brat at first, so I moved around a bunch, but grew up in right outside Phoenix, Arizona, Chandler, Arizona. So I went to Arizona State, big Sun Devil. That's where I grew up, went to college, started my career, I guess you could say, selling tickets in the athletic department at Arizona State. So my last semester of college, I needed a part-time job. I got an email. I think they blasted every single person, every student on campus, like, want to work in sports. And like, that was always my dream. But going through college, and I don't know if any of you are the same, like my parents, they raised me like, right, you go to college and you get a job in business. And I was like, all right, like I didn't know what job in business that would be, but I just knew I would work in business. So to get an opportunity to work in sports, I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I went to an information session and learned a little bit more about the job. And I told my parents, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be selling tickets. My dad, and if this is recording, I'm going to show it to him because he's funny. He's cheap. So he never bought like tickets from like the actual team. We'd get there right before the game. He'd look for the person outside down the street and like try and negotiate and cut a deal. And like me and my brother would be like, man, like this is so embarrassing. And that's what he thought I was going to be doing. He thought I was going to be the guy on the street, you know, trying to hustle tickets. I'm like, no, like there's a real job because I didn't know these jobs existed. I just showed up. And even like in college, you'd see like the grad assistants like doing the promotions during like halftime and like you saw them in their polos and their khakis. I'm like, I want to do that. That looks cool. So that's the only jobs I knew that were in sports. I didn't know there was this whole side of the business that drove revenue. I just thought if you want to go to the game, you go up to the window. At that point, they were starting to sell tickets online. And I was like, I just thought that's how like people went to games. So to learn that there's this opportunity to get into sales, drive revenue for, at this time, an athletic department, that was really cool. So it was my first job in sales, first job in sports, and I was awful. I was the last person in my group. We all started like groups of like 5 or 6 to make a sale, but it was fun for me because like it was something I was passionate about. And I think, I don't know, we'll touch on like where you want to go in your careers, but not everyone wakes up like or grows up saying, I want to be in sales. So for me, I was selling something I was passionate about. So I wasn't even phased, and also not someone who's going to quit. So I was like, I got to figure this out. I see everyone else going up, ringing the bell, high-fiving the boss, writing their numbers on the board. I'm like, I want to do that too. And I remember making my first sale, and it was because I made calls at night. It was from 5:30, like 8 o'clock at night. It's like around this time. I would Monday through Thursday. Got paid like $5 an hour. I didn't care. Like I was in the athletic department, like selling tickets. And so I'm going through, like, we had this script, and he made sure, like, read every single word from the script, word for word. And I get to the point where I ask, like, all right, are you ready to join the Sun Devil football family as a season ticket holder? I've been told no thousands of times by this point. So I'm expecting to hear another no and then go to my list and go pick up another call. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. I like froze. I'm like, I don't know what to do from here. Like, what do I do now? So I grabbed my boss. He came over and like helped me through it. And like, I'm just like, I blacked out. Like I made the sale. I wrote my number on the board, and that feeling is what triggered me. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And it's something I'm passionate about. Like, this is what I want to do for my career. And over time, I started to get a little better and start to see like, oh, there's a career path here because my boss guy by the name of Mike Boswell. He had worked in sports for like 20 years up to that point. And he had come to Arizona State to oversee ticket sales, premium sales, and revenue, but they didn't have a big budget to hire like a big sales staff like a lot of colleges do now. So what he did was he had one full-time person and he hired a bunch of students that he could pay really little money to make a bunch of calls to sell tickets. And he's like, hey, the incentive for us was when you graduate, I have a network of people that I could get you a job full-time in sports. So I was like, all right, that sounds sweet. Like I come here, I work in the athletic department. Obviously, there's no full-time roles here, but he can give me a job in sports. And so it had been a couple months after I had graduated. And I was like, all right, he said he was going to get his job in sports. Like I was talking to one of my coworkers. I'm like, I think he's full of it. Like none of us have any jobs in sports. He keeps talking about this one guy last year they sent to the Colorado Rockies. I'm like, I don't think this is legit. That next day, he's like, Andre, come to my office. Like, so the Arizona Diamondbacks are hiring. I'm going to refer you to interview with them. I was like, oh, I can take my foot out of my mouth now. But so he knew someone that was moving over from the Phoenix Suns through his time in sports that was going to work for the Arizona Diamondbacks and hire this full ticket sales team. As part of that group, I know you're from the Dolphins, so Tom Garfinkel, he was our COO at the time. Jeremy Walls, who left the Dolphins to now be the COO at the Arizona Cardinals, he was the one who was hiring us. And so like brought in all these people who are now C-level executives within sports to really revamp the Arizona Diamondbacks sales team. So I got hired to be part of their very first inside sales class. So inside sales, that's entry-level ticket sales. You're kind of cutting your teeth. A little bit what I did at ASU, but on a bigger scale. Full-time role, made $1,000 a month. I remember when they called me and told me how much I was making. I was like, done, I'm doing it. And I told my mom, she's like, no, you're not. I was like, yes, I am. Like, and so I typically lean more towards my mom, very safe. Get a job with benefits, like all that type of stuff. And my dad was more like the wild card, like do what you want, like be a free spirit, kind of that thing. And so once I went with his advice, and I'm glad I did because it paid off, my mom was like, one, I don't think sales is for you. You don't have the personality of a salesperson. She was protecting me. She's my mom. But then also she wanted me to have a job with benefits. So I joke with her all the time. Hey, remember you told me not to take that job? Like, see how it played out? She's like, I was just trying to help. So I took the job with the Diamondbacks. I spent 5 years in ticket sales with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it was cool for me because I grew up in Phoenix. I went to games there. So I was very familiar with the product, the market, and I got to take what I did in college and take it to a bigger scale. I paused there because that's probably the most important part of my life because that's where I met my wife, Brittany. She's from South Florida. When she graduated from Florida State, she moved out to Arizona, joined the Arizona Diamondbacks too, and we worked together. We're one of the few that actually make it working together in sports and dating. That really set me on my path where I want to go in my career and like building, the eventual resume that ended up being. So I spent 5 seasons there, went back to Arizona State and managed a ticket sales team. I was there about 6 or 7 months. My mentor, and you guys will learn this if you don't already, like it's such a tight-knit industry, like referrals, networking, like all that. That's how all my opportunities kind of came about. So my mentor from the Arizona Diamondbacks went to go to the Houston Astros to be their VP of ticket sales. And he was looking for an inside sales manager. He's like, hey, I would love for you to come join our team. I'd never been to Houston, never really been to Texas, but a few times. So we moved, like we packed up, we lived together in Arizona. Her parents were not happy. And as it's funny as I look back, because we have 3 daughters, and we always joke, we're like, what are our parents thinking? Like if our kids ever tried to just like, oh, I'm gonna quit my job and go move with my boyfriend across the country, like no way that's happening. So I get it now. But at the time we were like, all right, let's do it. This is exciting. So she quit her job. At the time she worked for Yelp. And she went to go be a teacher in Houston while I went to go run inside sales for the Houston Astros. At the time, we were the worst team in baseball. They called us the Lastros in market, which is funny. Like 25th out of 30 teams in ticket revenue. And then I was there for 7 seasons where we won a World Series, made it to another World Series, almost won again, and got to see what that growth looked like from going from the worst team to the best team. So for me, that was great learning because now I could be in any situation. I could be with the worst team in a good market, the worst team in a bad market, the good team in a good market. Like I knew like all those different dynamics, which prepped me well for running my own ticket sales team. So as I mentioned, Brittany, she's from South Florida. We had always circled one team because I love baseball. That's my passion. My dog's name's Griffey after King Griffey Jr. Like literally, like I'll watch MLB Network all day. was like, all right, so there's one team that is in South Florida that's in Major League Baseball. It's the Miami Marlins. Most people aren't like, oh, I got to go work for the Marlins when you think of all the 30 teams in baseball. But that was the one, that was my dream job. I applied for a role, a senior director role, a couple years before. I didn't get it. And then a VP role opened up. I'm like, wow, like this is even a bigger step than what I did. But I feel that what I learned from when I interviewed and didn't get the job prepped me for, taking and making some changes in my career so that when opportunity came about, I'd be ready. And I got the VP role January 2020, right before the pandemic and everything. What was exciting for me was obviously getting close to family. We had 2 daughters. We had our 3rd daughter here. So they're 8, 6, and 4. So all girls. And Derek Jeter at the time was the CEO, first Black CEO in baseball. Like that was super exciting for me. And also just what we're looking to do to really like rebuild the organization. And I got to come in and take a ticket sales team, was pretty much dismantled, and get to build it, my way with my values from scratch and everything like that. So spent 4 seasons, had a lot of successes there. Went through some challenging times because obviously the pandemic and managing a staff through that and just like the personal side of it, like that's probably one of my strengths, humbly, I'd say, as a leader. So that really got to flex and show, but then also learning at the executive level now, what does that look like? Running your team, managing a team, working across the executive team. So when Tony says, like, I've seen a lot, I learned a lot, good and bad, like you're in all these situations and you're figuring out in a tough market and challenging market, how do you get creative and try and push tickets and get people to come to games where there maybe isn't the demand in other markets. So learned a lot through that. Last summer, we started our own marketing consulting company. So Brittany's background, we talked about some marketing. Most recently, it's been in digital marketing for in the roofing industry. And then for me, obviously, it's been in sports. So we're like, all right, why don't we join forces? So we focus on marketing and sales consulting for sports teams. And I'll touch a little bit about what that looks like. And then also small businesses. So depending on what the opportunity is or where the need is, like we can kind of flex and figure out how do we best customize our services to help this organization, help this team reach their goals. So that's my background. That's my path. That's where we're at today. I'll share a little bit more about what we do. I'll jump in. Thanks again for sharing. So as I go through this, stop me and ask any questions. We're going through it. I know it. I've lived it. So to me, it's like second nature. But for some of you, this may be the first time you're hearing about ticket sales, about selling to businesses within sports and things like that. We have some exercises for you guys to get engaged with. So it's not just me standing here and talking the whole time. We'll get you guys involved in it. And then on the back end, I'll open it up for any questions. So really, well, first, let me introduce our company. So that's me on, I guess for you guys, the left, co-founder, and then my boss, personally and professionally. My wife, Brittany, she's CEO and co-founder. Did you have anything, you want to share anything? Cool. All right. So yeah, our company is 4Leaf Marketing Consulting. So our last name's Luck. 4Leaf Clover. We thought that was a cool play on words. But it was interesting because we were like, all right, we're going to have a marketing company. We're like, let's do 4Leaf Marketing. But that was taken by someone in like Port St. Lucie or something like that. So we're like, all right, well, 4Leaf Marketing Consulting is available. Let's just take that, which is great because it ended up morphing into a lot more consulting too. So it would have been weird for me to be like, yeah, let me like consult you on sales, but we're a marketing company. So like that consulting in there has helped a lot. So fortunate that worked out that way. So I'm very active on social media, and we'll touch on that if you guys have questions. So see our beautiful daughters at a Marlins game a couple years ago. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. I also do a lot of videos that I post on YouTube, and I'll ask you to follow our Instagram. Brittany runs our Instagram, so it's at 4LeafMC. And then you can see in the bottom left, those are different videos that we posted and content. So we try and post something every day. We're real big on just consistency and like being in front of people, because especially like with marketing, you never know when that's going to be that point where someone converts like, all right, let me reach out and learn more about you. That's where from LinkedIn, that's where most of the businesses come for me. For people that have reached out proactively is from the content that we've seen. And what I like about LinkedIn is, when I went to go start my own business, I could tell all my connections at scale, like, hey, here's what I'm doing, and I could share about that. I don't know how consultants did it before LinkedIn. They have to literally call every single person and then get them to tell more people. It would have taken too long. There's no way I would have done that. So, just the power of having a good connection and network. And I think I have a slide on that to talk through. If not, I definitely encourage you all to leverage that, get active. You don't have to post all the time, but start building a network, start building connections, and use that as a social network to build your brand. I need to update the slide because we have more, but this is an old slide, some of the clients we work with. So the first one that I worked with on the sports side was the Tennessee Titans. I worked with their group sales and inside sales team to help them with just B2B sales training. A couple other sports teams. We have a nonprofit, good friend of mine, Science of Sport we work with. We have a roofing company, a couple of people inside of sports and out of sports, and we've added on more sports teams more recently. And in conversations with a lot of major league teams, minor league teams as well. What's interesting about collegiate and minor league teams is because they are a little smaller and less resources, you can get creative. You have to get creative a little bit. So there are some things that I look at because I look at it from, how do we set ourselves up for what the future looks like? There's current buying behaviors, there's current sales processes, but like as more technology comes out, as ChatGPT and AI gets more prevalent, like how do we get out in front of that for the future? That's a big thing I talk about. Some people are like deer in the headlights, like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Others are like, yeah, like let's talk about it. What's cool is like those smaller teams that could be a little more nimble and like experiment and try some things that if it works well, we could take to some of the bigger properties like the Red Sox, like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, things like that. So that's all the work we've done now and continue to just grow within the sports industry and also other projects that are adjacent to sports to help sports teams just sell more tickets. All right. So we're gonna go through an exercise. So we could do like groups of 3 or 4. You guys all pair up. So really, I'm gonna talk through B2B sales and B2B sales specifically for sports. And one of the things I didn't appreciate when I first started in sports, because I would call some businesses or businesses would call us, it's a different conversation than talking to a fan. If you're a fan that's buying tickets because you're like a big fan of the team or you want to do something with your family or go out with friends and you're like really focused on like price and the benefits and like some of the features that come with being a season ticket holder, businesses that's completely different. So whenever and you're kind of getting like the B2B sales 101 that I go through in a lot of my training. So that's what we're going to talk through today, kind of the abbreviated version of that. So when I kick off training, I want people to be in the mindset of thinking like a business person because it is a different conversation. So this kind of helps do that. So in your groups of 4, we'll take about 10 minutes and I'll have you guys all share what you guys come up with. Go through this exercise, create your own business, come up with an idea. If someone already has one, great, like go with that. But answer these questions. You don't have to answer everyone when we call on you, but just kind of think through it. What does your business do? How do you make money? Who is your ideal customer that you're looking to target? How do you market your product? And then what are some of the biggest challenges you have? And then let's take it to, all right, I want to use sports tickets to potentially grow my business. So how can you use sports tickets, pick your favorite team or pick FAU, whatever you want to do. How can you use sports tickets to grow your business and be specific on like how you would use those tickets? And then as the business owner or the business leader, what would be your biggest objection to buying sports tickets? And so we'll start there and talk through that just to think through like a business person and hear what you guys come up with. So why I like to start here is, so let's say one of the things I thought I was really good at, I led sales teams was recruiting. So let's say I convinced you all to get past all your fears. You decided to be sales reps, ticket sales reps for your favorite sports team. And now we're focusing on selling to businesses. So a lot of people, that's what, when I start training, like this is where I want to start because I want them in the mindset of thinking like the business that they're going to be reaching out to. When I reached out, I was like, hey, you have a business. I need to hit my sales goal. You got more money than like the fans. Like you should buy tickets. Like that was my mindset going into it. I didn't think about what does this company do? How does this company make money? What would be some of their objectives? I would just go into it and hope that they were interested. And you'll come across a few that are like, yeah, it sounds good. Like, let's meet. But you have to play the volume game with that. And like at this point with like AI, just blast thousands of emails a day and see who raised their hand and like take it. You don't need a salesperson for that. So you need to be strategic. You need to think, from their perspective. So I always like to start there because the objections you guys said, those are the objections we always get. So you need to know the objections going into that conversation and what that's going to be. You need to go into the conversation with some ideas, or let's say you're calling a construction company, you're calling a nonprofit, have some people that maybe we've already worked with in mind in case you get an objection, like, well, here's how other people have overcome that. So the next, however long we're going through these slides, like picture yourself in the role of a salesperson that you would be making calls to businesses and think through, that's what we'll talk through here. And then also, for all the other roles you want to do, now you'll have a different perspective and appreciation for what it means to go through sales. So as you're supporting sales or looking to drive your organization, that's what it's about. But really for each one, there's pain points, there's challenges that business owners and business people are focused on. And the more you could show them, you mentioned ROI, like how they drive revenue. It's always great to take care of their employees. It's great to make sure they're cutting costs, they're having a good time, but like they're looking at how do I either lower my cost to be more profitable, or how do I drive revenue? That's usually the case. Like, how do I make more money? So how can your sports tickets help you make more money? That's what we need to tie together. So B2B Sports Sales 101. So through these conversations I'm having with people and studying like some of the top marketers, so I didn't come up with this, but I took what I hear from like the top B2B marketers, and I'll share these slides afterwards so you guys have it, so don't feel you need to take notes, but you guys can go back through this. They kind of talk through this customer journey and like how they market their product. And I think, sales and marketing are kind of go hand in hand. Like marketing is helping create awareness to drive so you get to sales. So I look at this from two ways in this, revenue framework: create awareness, generate pipeline, closing new sales, and then renewing and growing your clients. It's kind of the ideal journey that people go through when you onboard a new client and then hope to keep them long-term with you. So I look at it from our business first of like, all right, if I'm working with a client, what services can we provide as for leaf in those different areas? Because every company is trying to create awareness. Every company is trying to generate pipeline where people want to talk to their salespeople. Everyone's trying to close those sales. Everyone's trying to renew those sales. So I listed out some different, sales or marketing services that we could provide. But then I flip it to the sports team or the seller and say, right, if this is the journey we need to get them through, where do we fit into that equation? And typically on the sales side, it's generating pipeline because you're trying to go find people that want to have a conversation with you or meet with your salespeople, so they're in your pipeline. You're trying to close sales with them, and you're trying to renew them, and hopefully they spend more with you in the future. So that's kind of how I look at our business, but then also I want the person to think on that end, because if there's no awareness and you just start calling people trying to sell them and they're not aware of who you are, I think that's one of the things with like some sports teams or even like businesses, they're trying to create awareness. So how can you help them do that and take them through this journey? So that's, kind of starting out 101, how I look at the customer journey on the B2B side. So what I want to talk through, and I touched on this a little earlier, one of the big things I like to hit on is modern sales best practices, specifically as relates to B2B, because a lot of the sales practices, techniques, methodologies, they're either from like, the 70s and 80s and people just keep regurgitating it, or like a lot of my peers and counterparts within sports, they're teaching what we learned in 2008, 2009, 2010. So much has changed, and like one for technology, but like there's different generations who are now in decision making. I went through a training the other day with the Titans. I'm doing leadership training with them. And there was a slide I went through of the generation, like pretty much it's mostly Gen X and millennials who are making a lot of decisions now. So if we're still selling the way that Gen Z and millennials are the ones making decisions, if we're still selling the way that baby boomers and Gen X bought, like we need to make sure that we're shifting with that. So a couple of things to hit on: people are more informed. There's way more information. When I sold, like you had to call me to get information. I had to tell you when our mini plans came on sale. I had to tell you pricing. Now, because people don't want to, like, I'm not going to go through all these hoops to try and buy tickets from you. Like, so we make it available. We put it online. We put pricing online. We sell $50,000 suites online. People are willing to spend that. So that's changed. There's more data. Someone mentioned analytics, like the way that we make decisions as a business, that's changed. There's more buying committees. There used to be like, all right, we got to get to the CEO, got to get to the final decision maker. Now they delegate, they work. I know you're big on finance and like making sure that they're talking to their finance person, like what's the return we're getting on these investments, and like who else needs to be involved to make sure that we're not just wasting dollars because you're just a big sports fan. Is this actually bringing an ROI to our business? So there's more people involved. So you need to engage more people within the organization. People want more personalized messaging. They want to understand, and this is why I go through this exercise. You're not just saying, oh, we sell to businesses, but no, we sell to sports agencies. We sell to merchandise or companies, things like that. Like being specific to the person that you're talking to, because you could talk to a CEO of a business and you could talk to a head of sales, and they both have differing focuses. This VP of sales is probably focused on like right now, how do I hit my sales goal? How do I get my sales team to where we need to get to? Where the CEO is thinking 3, 5, 10 years down the road, like how do we build this brand for the long term, or how do we get acquired one day? So you need to talk in terms that are make sense to them and relevant to them. And then the last part, just hybrid selling. I was big against like remote work for salespeople. Like it will never work. And then I was forced to do it because of the pandemic. So we had to pivot and figure it out. And then it was like, oh, the motivated people are still going to make sales, and the lazy people still aren't going to make their calls. So it doesn't matter if they're in the office or not, we can force them in, but at the end of the day, being able to pivot. I prefer a face-to-face meeting, and ideally, if you're going to try and pitch someone or sell someone, you go to them. Because I always tell people, like, oh, we got to get them to the ballpark. We got to go to the stadium, get them all excited. I'm like, if I'm getting pitched, I'm not driving 30 miles so someone can pitch me so I can go to their ballpark. So we make it easy. Hey, we're going to come to you, come to your office. But from a time standpoint, although it's not as effective, I can be way more efficient. I could do 5 virtual meetings in the time it takes me to do like 1 or 2 out of office meetings. So if it's a big enough meeting, a big enough opportunity, then yeah, we'll go out there. But I recommend more people being hybrid. And if you sell, like now you can sell internationally, you can sell across the country depending on what it is that you sell. So just understanding remote and hybrid selling, that's changed from where sales was 15, 20 years ago. So I'll go through this one really quickly just for time's sake. So ways that you can offset that, make sure that you engage buyers early with insights, not just products. Using technology. So I talked about using LinkedIn. I talked about their social media. You can use video, email. It's not just pick up the phone because most people don't even answer the phone anymore. I don't. I don't know if you guys do either. So how do you still get through to people? And there are stats that show the more you cold call and the more you make phone calls, the more success you have. But you have to be seen as a consultant, a trusted advisor. Pushy sales tactics, like trying to get people like to make a decision, it doesn't work anymore. Like I'm going to shove this down someone. So I know you mentioned like getting people to tell you no, but I'm sure you have a consultative approach to it, right? You're not just like, all right, you got to buy this. And if you don't get this today, like it may not be available tomorrow. Like those tactics, like people are over it, like the gimmicks, like I'm real big on like, no, let's be consultative. Let's learn about their business. Let's talk about how other people are seeing success and tie those two together. And then it's just a very difficult buying landscape of trying to navigate through multiple people who are making decisions. So why it's important to sell B2B? Because if I'm an outsider looking in, it's like, well, if I just sell tickets, like, doesn't it just matter? Why it's important to sell to businesses? One, just bigger revenue. Like they have more money. And even though it seems like a lot and they're like, oh, my margins are tight, like that's a small investment into how they run their business. These are $5, $10, $100 million businesses. You're asking them to spend $10,000, $15,000. Like assuming the ROI is there, that's a small investment for them. So one of the benefits, if you can train your team to have conversations with businesses, is like you can get way bigger deal sizes much more quickly. So if you have goals and targets you need to chase, businesses can help you do it. It's a challenge because they're not necessarily fans. You talk to fans, they're like, yeah, I love, the team was great. Like we made the playoffs, we won a championship. Like those are more fun conversations, but you need to make more of those sales to get to your number. And so that leads to just more efficiency, greater job satisfaction, and then just they renew at a higher rate. They're not as influenced by a bad season. If they're seeing success for their business, or they do a group outing every year and all their employees love it and it helps keep their retention up, they're going to do that group outing every single year. Where a fan's like, oh, well, the team sucked last year, I'm not going to games, and like now you got like that's out of your control. So one of the things that I liked is like, all right, they renew at a higher rate, they're more consistent, they're not necessarily fair weather. As long as I can show value to their business, I have more revenue stability, predictability. So for you finance people, for those people who are like looking at overall profitability, it's more profitable to sell to businesses if you can do that motion well than to fans where a lot of that's out of your control. So how companies use tickets, you guys hit on most of this, but I focus really on the primary use cases when we're talking about going out to businesses to try and sell tickets. There's 3 main ways. They use it for their current clients, so they're looking to acquire, or they're looking to take care of their current clients to get them to come back, to get them to renew. They use it for prospective clients. So a lot of times a company will have their salespeople take prospects that they're looking to sell, bring them to games, develop that relationship, get them to buy tickets, and then employees. Just so you all know, some of you guys are in sales, some of you have done ticket sales. A lot of younger, newer salespeople, they like to focus on employees because most people will talk about an employee outing. Like, yeah, I would love to talk about that. Like, or if they're getting patched through to somebody, like, yeah, I hope my boss signs off on an employee group outing. A couple things to think about. Those are great, but I tell people get as close as you can to how the company makes money. Not to say that employees don't make money, but closing sales makes money. So if you spend more time with, here's how I can help you get more clients, or here's how I can help you take care of your current clients so they stay with you longer, which is actually more profitable because it's easier to renew somebody than to try and find someone new, you're gonna have more success. So I know this from experience, but most businesses, their employee or their sales and marketing budgets are this, and their employee budgets are this. We do a group outing every year. We go to Top Golf. It's fun. We take them to, a happy hour. That's a couple $1,000s throughout the year. Sales and marketing budgets are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that companies are trying to create awareness. They're doing digital media ads. They're doing social media. They're putting billboards up. Like, there's a lot of money in that. So that's where I want to try and talk to someone who controls that budget. And here's how we can use sports tickets to help you get more clients, get more awareness, renew your clients. That's where you're gonna have more success. But other use cases, especially like for baseball tickets, there's 81 home games. So that's always the biggest objection. Too many games. But we have other use cases for it aside from just sales and marketing efforts. So a lot of times C-levels will use it. So like your executives, they'll take either their executive team out, maybe everyone comes in town for a retreat and they're looking for something fun to do. You have tickets. That's a good way to do it. Or just to network. They're like, all right, they're a CEO. They want to take their CEO buddy from another company, see how they can like do business together or just share best practices. Let's go to a football game. Let's go to a baseball game. Let's talk about it. Networking opportunities, referrals. If someone refers business to you, that's a great opportunity to say, hey, thank you for that client you sent over. I got tickets to the game. Do you want to go? Or what's your favorite team? What's your kid's favorite team? I'll give them tickets to the Yankees when they come to town. Corporate social responsibility. So like what you all talked about, these donors that you have, maybe they have tickets and just as a thank you or just to do goodwill, they want to get tickets to your campers. Like there's a lot of different ways people use it. But that, when you get that objection, like, oh, there's too many games, I don't know how I could use tickets. Here's ways that, especially the ones in the primary use case that most companies use tickets and other ways they can use it too. What I like to talk to for salespeople is you speak to who you sound like. So you guys aren't in sales, you don't necessarily know this, but a lot of times, a lot of the language we use around client entertainment. So what do you do to entertain your clients? Let's talk about how you can entertain your clients. As a CEO, when you think of that, like entertainment, like I'm trying to run a business, like I'm not trying to entertain people. Like, yes, I know that's part of it, but if you talk about, hey, we have tickets and other teams use tickets so they can upsell their clients, cross-sell their clients, retain their clients better, expand those accounts that they have, like their top high-spending clients, that's talking their language. So you get to talk to executives. If you talk about entertainment, you usually get defaulted or you get to talk to the person that passes out the tickets or the person that coordinates the outing. They're not signing off on it because they're just looking like, all right, my boss told me that I need to plan this outing or get the tickets out. You don't want to talk to that person at the end after you close the sale, but on the front end, you want to talk to the person who's in charge of their current clients. You want to talk on the prospective client side. How are you acquiring new clients? How are you looking to grow your clients? Even for like employees, not just employee morale, but how do you incentivize your employees to stay longer? How do you reward your top performing employees? Your salespeople that hit their goal this year, the marketing team just, finished a big project. Like, how do you reward them? The big one here is differentiation. And you all may see this because you guys are potentially in the job market. You're comparing this team or this company versus another one. What perks do they offer versus this one? I tell people like it doesn't matter the free coffees and the lunches you get. Like there's bigger purposes for why you should take a job. But one that's big like for sports teams, especially like in baseball, because over the summer, a lot of law firms, they'll do summer intern outings so they can differentiate and like take care of these interns. Potentially they come work for them when they graduate. So ways that you can differentiate in the hiring process. So you could talk to recruiters, you could talk to HR people, like here's how you can differentiate. So some of the big industries that buy sports tickets, typically what I've learned and what I've seen, blue collar industries, because that just seems to be more of like a sports type fan. We do really well with that. But these are the main industries that purchase. So IT and tech, financial services, so banks, those are really big. Insurance, real estate, professional services. It really depends on the market. The good thing is like there's always so many companies you can go after. There's never a time that a salesperson could come in and be like, I don't know who to call. It's like, I just gave you 15 industries right there. And that second to last bullet point, they only make up 40% of the industries that buy. So there's another 60% of industries that buy in a smaller capacity. So there's always someone you can call. There's always a group. There's always a nonprofit. There's always a church you can reach out to. So there's never ending list of people that you can reach out to. So that's a burden, or that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a blessing and a curse. That's what I was going to say. There we go. Because you spread yourself so thin, you're calling a logistics company, then you're calling a healthcare company. And like, if you're well-versed, you could do that. What I tell people is pick two and get well-versed in that. Like what did your parents do growing up? Like, were you around their business? Because you know the lingo, you know the ins and outs. Like Brittany, like her parents had a roofing company. So she knows how roofers think. So, all right, if she was gonna go call people to sell tickets, I'd tell her to start in construction and roofing because you know that area. Or maybe you interned in one or something like that. So I always coach people, pick one or two, start there, and then start to expand. Or if you're not well versed, go talk to the person who manages all of your current clients and ask them, what companies buy from us? Who buys from us the most? Because then you have testimonials. You can go to, let's say, a lot of commercial real estate companies. That was big in Arizona. Let's say a lot of commercial real estate companies buy from you. So go call more of them and say, hey, we have XYZ real estate company. We have this one. They do business with us this way. I don't know if you can or not, but I want to talk to you about how potentially you could do business with us as well. So, so these are the different industries. So when you're talking about going after new people, there's always industries, and it's just good for you to know like who are some of the top ones. And then a lot of words here, so I'll condense it for you just to keep it simple. The other thing you need to think through is the size of the company that you're reaching out to. The way that a small business makes decisions, they're lean, is probably like the presidency. Like we'll just talk our businesses, two of us, and AI sometimes. Like it's just us. So if you want to talk, you're talking to the co-founder and CEO. But if you're in a large 500,000 person company, you're probably not getting to the CEO. There's bigger things. They delegate that down to like their directors, their vice presidents. They entrust them. They give them budgets to run the business. They want to be in the loop, and eventually they want to look at the numbers. But you just need to know, all right, what type of company am I going after? How are they typically structured? Who should I go after based on all that? And just know some of the attributes of a small company versus a large company. So I'm real big on buyer personas. We actually posted a video this week about that and how understanding your buyer persona can help you be more relevant with your messaging. So as I talked about, the CEO versus talking to like a head of sales. These are the people that we typically go after as a sports salesperson looking to call to businesses. And each of these have different use cases. So a CEO, president, and owner, like all of their challenges, all their goals from all the different direct reports kind of funnel up to them. They're looking at long-term vision. They're looking to build the brand. They're looking to market and get out there and like set the company up for long-term success. So when you talk to them, you're going to want to hit on those things and how sports tickets or a sponsorship can help them do that. The head of sales, they're looking to get new clients. They're looking to retain their clients, looking to hit their sales goals. So how can sports tickets help them do that? What are some of the objections they're going to have? Marketing, they're looking to build the brand. They're looking to drive leads to the sales team. So you want to hit on that. What are some of the challenges that they face when doing that? And how can our tickets help them do that? Human resource, I talked about differentiating in the hiring process. Maybe there's a lot of turnover at your company, and one way that you can offset that is by doing something to reward and incentivize your employees and do a post-event survey to see, all right, how did everyone enjoy it? Did the employee like internal NPS score, did that go up? Did employee satisfaction go up after the event? Those are ways you can measure and track that. CFO, a lot of times you don't think through that, but like I've seen where like the finance team will take people out because they hit a goal. But the thing you just need to think about the CFO, they're always quantifying like this investment. I think a few of you said like, what's the return we're getting on that? The CFO is going to be the one like, hey, in the executive boardroom, like, hey, this all sounds great, but like, why are we buying sports tickets? Like, aren't there other ways we could spend our dollars that are going to bring us a better investment? So you need to prep your person you're talking to when they go meet with their CFO. Here's why this is a good return. You can't promise a certain ROI. You can't guarantee that someone's going to get, if you spend, 10,000 with me, I'm going to guarantee you $100,000 in sales. Sometimes that happens, but you can talk about other stories where that's worked. And one I like to share a lot when I was working with the Marlins, we had this event and like all these different chambers of commerce came out and I got to speak at it. And I was like, all right, what am I going to talk about with all these people? And I talked about, hey, if you're thinking about for your business, looking for ways that you can grow, create awareness, generate new sales, generate new leads. A lot of companies are having success with us right now. So consider looking at us as an alternative or an option based on maybe other things you're spending your marketing and sales dollars on. So everyone's like, oh, okay, nod their head. I was like, all right, I gave my pitch. After that event, at the end of it, I'm talking to one of my reps and this guy comes up and he's like, hey, I was that guy you talked about. I was like, what do you mean? I didn't bring anyone up. He's like, no, you mentioned people that have seen a return from using tickets. He's like, the guy next to me was the one who sold them. He's like, I spent, let's call it $20,000 with you all. I've already brought back $500,000 in new business, and I have another 500,000 in just pipeline just waiting to close because I brought them to games and they want to do business with me. I was like, well, one, we're not charging you enough. That's the first thing I thought. But I was like, all right, we got to use that every time we're talking to a business person. Like, I can't promise you this, but some of our clients are seeing a 15, 20x ROI on using tickets. Like, that's going to get someone's attention because that's a positive ROI that can directly impact the bottom line of their business. So I touched on relevance and personalization, a couple of things to think about. So this is more when you're picking up the phone to make a call, or you're writing your email, or you're sending a LinkedIn message. That top bullet point is the one I always like to hit on. Right now, 376 billion emails are being sent per day. So salespeople get mad. They're like, I'm sending emails, they're ignoring me, blah, blah, blah. Like if they're getting that many, my inbox used to look like that, 6,000 emails in my Gmail, but I delete everything. So now I'm in a decent space in the hundreds, but that's how executives' inbox looks. So if you're just in there and they're getting all these other sales messages, like how are you standing out? Like how are you differentiating from them? You need to hit on something that's relevant. So you could talk about, hey, I know as a CEO, you're focused on growing the vision or building a brand. Like, yes, that is a responsibility, but the more you get on the pains, the challenges, the struggles that they have, that's going to get someone's attention. A lot of people don't take action until they feel pain. So if we can bring up, hey, I know as a CEO, here are some of the challenges that you face, and here's how we've been able to help people overcome that, you're going to get more people to respond to it. It's not going to work 10 times out of 10, but if right now it's working 1 out of 10, maybe that works 3 or 4 times out of 10. And that's what I'm really trying to coach people up on doing is like, how do you be more relevant and personalize your message so it stands out and people actually want to respond back to you? So I list some different ways that you can be more relevant with your messaging. This is from a book called The Innovative Seller. One I recommend if you're ever looking to get into sales, but it just talks about cutting through the noise. I talked about ChatGPT earlier, and it's really what these are prompts that you can put into ChatGPT so that you don't have to come up with this all on your own. If you guys all, like, let's say we really went with this project, you guys are calling businesses right now, and I gave you a list of construction companies, you're like, I don't know what a construction company does. I don't know how they make money. Maybe you could come up with something, plug it in ChatGPT. What are the top 3 trends in construction right now? And then if you're reaching out to a VP of sales, you're reaching out to a CEO, what are the top 3 trends in construction for a VP of sales, and what are the challenges that they face? Then you can take it even further based on the trends in the industry, based on their title and some of the challenges they face. How can my tickets or how can my product help them solve that? Then you can come with a prompt. Don't copy and paste it, but at least gives you ideas and places to start. So I did this exercise with the Titans in my first training with them, and what they learned in 5 minutes took me 10 years of experience of just going on meetings, learning, talking to my buddies. Hey, you talked to a bank today. Like, what did they say? What did the regional VP tell you? Like, what are their priorities? Like, now you can like speed that up so much quicker. So it's so much better for salespeople. And it's just crazy to me. A lot of people are like, oh, I feel like I'm cheating. Or they're like, I don't mess with ChatGPT. I'm like, why not? Like, if you can expedite your development 10 years in 5 minutes, like, why not at least give you something so you sound more educated when you start that conversation? So you sound more knowledgeable when you reach out to somebody. So I'm a big advocate for it. It's something I work into my training. We do exercise around it as well, because there's no reason not to use it, or at least give you ideas. Now take that, put your personal spin on it. Like I can tell when something's been produced by ChatGPT. There was a project I got looped in on, and someone had built out a business plan. They're like, hey, we'd love for you to help out with like the sales part of it, sales consulting in it. And I read through and I was looking at, the description. I could tell like the things we were going to provide from a sales standpoint was ChatGPT, because I'm an expert in tickets, humbly expert. I know, I'm like, all right, like that's just very base level. It looked good. Most people look at it like, yeah, that sounds like a good business plan, but I know there's intricacies to it. So the more knowledgeable you are, the more expertise you have in a certain field, you can better prompt ChatGPT, or you can take their basic kind of like answer it gives and put your own personalized spin on it. Because at some point, if everyone starts adopting this and using it, everyone's message is going to look exactly the same. So now this is how you really can use your expertise to customize and personalize and stand out. Because right now it's an advantage. More people are going to start using it. So how do you then, when everyone has ChatGPT and is using that for their posts, their marketing and all that, how do you really differentiate? It's your expertise and your industry knowledge and things like that. So I'll open up the questions here in a second. So I always forget, so I've made slides on words of advice that I give to someone getting in the industry now. And I think the other one I said, oh, advice for my younger self, because I get that question a lot. So I'll just get out in front of that now. Words of advice that I give for you or a young professional, get on LinkedIn. I touched on that earlier. It's a great place to build your network. Like I said, I post daily. You don't need to do that, but just the more you get familiar with it, you can start to meet people, personalize and humanize the process. If you're interviewing for a job, like connect with that person, send them a personalized video. Because most people, they apply for a job and just wait for someone to call them. Like do that research, use that as an opportunity to differentiate from people, because most people just leave it to luck and hope that they get the job. Like put the odds in your favor and get out and personalize it. I talked about generative AI and ChatGPT, so I'm gonna hit on that one. Learn that, use it, try it out, test it out. And then from the exercise we talked about earlier, know how businesses make money. Whether it's a company that you're looking to interview with or a company you're looking to join, like how do they make money? And how does the role that you're doing and help them do that? If it's not make money, how do they fundraise if it's a nonprofit? How do they better serve their mission? Like if it's a church, how do they get more members? How do they engage their members? So know what are their business goals and objectives, and how can you help and support that to make sure that happens? It's not just about, me and my role. I need to make sure I do my job. You need to serve the bigger purpose and mission for the company and the organization. So that'd be my advice. If I could go back to my younger self, be where your feet are. I think part of what drove me and pushed me was like always looking ahead of like, all right, I need to get a manager by this age and be a director by this age. But a lot of that, like for me, faith's big to me. Like God's plan isn't necessarily the one that you come up with. So I think again, it pushed me because I was chasing these targets and goals, but I didn't always enjoy the write-up. I was so focused on what's next that in the moment, like the best way to get promoted is to crush your current job and just kill it in your current job. Opportunities present themselves. They may come different than what you were envisioning and what you're expecting, but if you do really well and you're successful, people will find you. So that's one piece of advice I'd say. Be your authentic self. I think for me, I'm a little more reserved. I'm a little more laid back as a salesperson. Most salespeople are outgoing, charismatic, loud, running around the office. I'm just like, that's not me. So I was insecure early in my career as a salesperson. I'm like, man, like, dude, is that how I need to be? Going back to even like what my mom says, like, you don't have the personality for sales. She meant it more like you're not a sleazy car salesman. You care about people. But like, those are all things. And like, we would take these personality assessments when I became a leader. And, mine was, she gives me a hard time. Like mine was pretty much like I could do boring, consistent things over and over and over again, like repeatable tasks. Like I am literally like a robot. Like I have my schedule. Everything is in 30-minute blocks. Cause like that's just like, even as a kid, I had my chores on like my wall. Like, right, one day it's this, I got to do that. And my oldest daughter is the exact same. So I just crack myself up because like she's literally taking everything from me. But so when I read these personality assessments, we'd be in a room and like my boss would be like charismatic, like brings people together, like motivates people, and like all these other, like this person is driving and they push for results. And then I read mine and they'd be like, oh, okay, like steady Eddie. And I'd be so insecure about it. But the more I just leaned into that, I realized I was like, oh, that's actually my differentiator, because all these like crazy people run around the office, like doing all this stuff, like banging the bell and everything like that. I was that calm kind of soothing at times, empathetic boss. And like, that's what people need. They just needed consistency. They needed structure, they needed processes. And the more I just accepted like, oh, that's my superpower, that's my strength. And if I had done that early in my career, I would have had more success and enjoyed the ride more. So that's something like I'm big on personality assessments. I'd encourage you to take it, or at least just be comfortable in your own skin. Don't try and be like what other people think you are. And if someone tries to push you to that, it's probably not the place you need to be. Strive for excellence. So I talked about being amazing at your job. Don't just go through the motions. Like, especially in sports, like so many people want these opportunities. And like I recruited for it. So anytime we post a job, I get 400 plus applicants. And all these people reaching out like, oh, I'd do anything to work for you. And then 6 months later, they're complaining because they got to work a weekend. But at least on the front end, they were saying that all the right things. But this is a special opportunity that we get to touch sports, be around sports, work in sports. A lot of people would die for. So when you're in it, really strive to be excellent, be the best you can at your job, and then be curious. Ask questions. Get outside of just your kind of sphere, your department. How do these departments work together? I know I drove my boss nuts because I would be like, well, what's happening in marketing? He's like, dude, I don't care. I need you to sell tickets. I'm like, well, what about ticket ops? Like, how does that all connect? Like, I was always curious. And like now where I'm at in my career, consulting teams, now all that's coming back. Cause like now I'm connecting the dots. I'm like, all right, sales is here. marketing's here. How do I bring them together? Because like I was always curious. So be curious about, the other areas of the business. Be curious about how do you guys work better together as partners? So those are all things, if I could go back, I would give advice to myself. That's it. So I'll open it up for questions. Have any questions?
Do you two have like a dream organization that you want to like work with?
You have one?
I thought the Red Sox, that was like really cool.
Yeah.
That was really.
Yeah, Red Sox was cool. Just being a fan. It was funny. Our 10-year anniversary was this past year, the last October. And we're like, oh, we should go to Boston for our anniversary. Like as it was getting closer to it, like, man, we're busy. I don't know if we'll be able to do it. The Red Sox reached out and they're like, oh, we'd love for you to come out. I'm like, let's just make a trip out of it. So, you think of some of those bigger brands, and it's interesting, like you go to some of the, like from the outside looking in, and this is no knock on any of these organizations, they're all run well, but you look at the Cowboys, you look at the Yankees, then you like kind of get behind the scenes, you're like, oh, like they have problems just like every other teams too. So I don't know there's necessarily one because like I've worked in baseball and I know all the people at all the different teams. I think like, yeah, big brand like the Cowboy. What I think would be great for our business is like those brands because like people see that logo like, oh my gosh, like I announced one team, they're like, oh cool, I announced the Red Sox, my LinkedIn blew up. So I think from a business standpoint, it's good to have some of those bigger ones. But like I said, it's cool to work with some of the startup organizations like the Sharks or some of these startup leagues because you can do things a little creative and take those to the bigger organizations too. So
When you're reaching out to like these executives, what would you say like your percentage of like them responding back, not like finishing a sale, but them actually like responding to you?
yeah, somebody I didn't put that slide in here. So that's one thing I like to set expectations too on the front end. I say, in market to buy any type of product similar to yours is usually less than 5%. So let's say you're reaching out to 100 people, less than 5 are even thinking about doing anything to take care of their clients or employees. And it's not even that they're thinking about using you, you're just thinking about any of your competitors too. Other sports teams, taking them to dinners and lunches. Like they're just like, all right, we need to do something for the objective to take care of our clients and grow our business. So there's already 95% of the people you're reaching out to right now are not interested. And just by the sheer fact that you're reaching out and they didn't call you, you're assuming they're not interested. If they're interested, they would have reached out to you or they would have told you when you got on the phone. So typical close rate, less than 1% when you're just cold reaching out to businesses. So, and I've experienced this too, just in my own business. Like I'll reach out to, new sports teams that I don't already have a relationship, very thought out, relevant message. I've been in their shoes before. I know exactly what they're going through. And email back, take me off your email list. I'm like, no, I'm not just some telemarketer. Like, what do you mean take me off your email list? So, what I've learned, referrals go a long way. Your network, even if it's not the person in the company that can make that decision, just get it, like even little, like I talked to a rep, I'm like, hey, I was referred to you by this rep on your staff. And then most people are going to respond back to me. So that's, I'm real big on your network, working from the inside out, like who are your current clients and who can they refer you to? Because and you've had a little bit of background sales, so I think you get this, but we're so focused on like, all right, there's all these people, we got to go get new people. And like, that's so inefficient when you look at like the return on effort you're getting. So I really like to change the perspective of like, look what's like already touching your product, who's in your network. I tell them connect with your executives. So let's say like Tony's the CEO. Who's Tony connected to? And don't assume he's already tapped into it, that he could introduce you to some of his executive friends that we could talk to about tickets. So close rate less than 1%. So that means response rate is, even less than that. So really it's like, a lot of you probably don't want to do sales. You're just getting told no all the time. Or most of the time you don't even hear from people. That's actually the most challenging part. It's not getting told no. It's you just make all these calls, and you make 30, 40 calls and no one talks to you. You're like, what am I doing? So I try and focus on where's the biggest opportunity if you'd have success.
So the majority of your clients, you would say, come from like referrals, word of mouth, your connections you have?
Like for me personally, that's been pretty much all of them. There's been a few, but even then it was like, hey, I was talking to this person. They said I should reach out to you. So I've got a couple of deals that way, but most of them have been people coming to me in my network. And eventually at some point that's going to dry out and you have to, and so I'm always looking to create like new connections. So I'm always telling people, even if you have like a healthy pipeline and a strong book of business, just continue to meet new people. And they may not buy from you until 12, 18 months from now, but you always have to be adding new to the mix. That's so you don't have those ups and downs in your sales cycle. Like you always have something that you potentially be working and can potentially come through.
Cool. Thank you.
So you mentioned the Miami Sharks and you're working with them. Could you elaborate on how that relationship started and how, because I'm familiar with rugby, I played rugby, and I know the MLR is still a young league, and really, because there have been teams that have dropped, like ceased to exist. So how was it kind of, I guess, I don't know if they have a sales team or not, but how is it kind of being the foundation to their sales and reaching out to it's not a big market down here.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going through that right now. So definitely understand it. So I'm going to hit both of your questions with this one because it's a really cool story how it actually came about. But to answer your question, where I'm helping, they don't have a sales team. They have like 5 or 6 people in the front office that are doing a lot of stuff. And part of it is trying to get the word out, educate people about rugby, and where they saw me as an asset is like, oh, you've sold in market, you have relationships. Like, how do we leverage that to potentially, use that to get people to come in? I talked to Tony about doing an outing, so maybe we can get that organized and bring people to a game, so I get a sale out of it. Like other like companies that I worked with, the other teams, like, hey, like, and being a good person too helps. Like just the like, I don't know anything about rugby, but I like working with you, so I'll at least hear what you have to say. So that's really the focus is like, how do we find people? And I'm looking like, searching people if they have rugby in their LinkedIn profile. Maybe they're more likely to like rugby. Like, so there's some, and I know just like how most sports teams grow their business. So at least I can be like, all right, let's focus on schools. I mentioned nonprofits. Let's target nonprofits. They can bring a bunch of people out. So they don't have a big sales team. And really it's like, how do we get single game buyers to come to games and have a good time? And it's literally grassroots, like, and then come another time. And then eventually like, oh, I've had so much fun. Like I should become a season ticket member. And it's like from scratch, like that's interesting to see because everywhere I've gone, like there's already a built-in like fan base. There's leads that you can call, people that used to have season tickets. So like this is literally like grassroots. And so it's really cool and fun, but obviously it's going to be a challenge to like get that momentum going. The power of your network and building a network is so important. So how I eventually met this person, I went to a chamber event, Miami Beach Chamber, 2023 maybe? It was the summer of 2023. It was a Friday night. I felt bad. She was upset because Friday night are pizza movie nights with the girls, and it had already been a long season. It's October. So it was October, it wasn't summer, it was October. And I'm like, oh, I got to go to this chamber event. And it's like, I didn't even know if I really wanted to go, but I'm like, fine, I'll just go. Didn't meet anyone there. So I left like, man, this was a waste. Like I missed movie and pizza night. Like I was gone all season. I missed another night, but they did introduce their new board of directors that day. And so I connected with all of them on LinkedIn. I noticed one guy was posting a lot on LinkedIn, and I reached out to him to do, partner with us at the Marlins and look to do stuff from a ticket sales perspective. He's like, yeah, cool. Sounds great. So I built that relationship with him. We reconnected after I left the Marlins. He's like, hey, we're having this event. It was probably like October, November when all those storms were coming. So they had to cancel that day. And so we were supposed to speak about our business that day in their like chamber meeting, but we just stayed in touch. He's like, hey, I'm like, when is there another event coming up that we could potentially speak at? He's like, actually this weekend or this week we're having one. You should come talk. At that one that I rescheduled for, the Miami Sharks were there. And the guy was, he does everything. He wears a ton of hats. And I shared about my background, my business and everything like that. He's like, we need your help. Like, we need people like you to help us because like you get this and you understand the challenge we're going through. I'm like, I don't know how you're doing what you're doing. So go back, a year and a half, 2 years, I go to this event. I felt it was a waste because I didn't meet anybody. That led to this relationship with the Sharks because he invited me to another event. And we're working on a separate project, to build out to potentially drive more ticket sales for sports teams, just for me just deciding to go to that event that day and connecting with them on LinkedIn. not even meeting him that day. So those are things that when I think like people go to networking events, like, all right, I gotta close somebody right now. I gotta go back and tell my boss I got all these leads. Just organically meet people, and over time, you just never know what's gonna come from. So what else do you guys have?
I have another question. I was wondering, what is the average time you like work with a particular organization? Like, is it typically like a set time, like a set contract, like you'll work with them for a period of time, or is it?
Oh, like me
long-term?
personally?
Yes,
Right.
like
Okay.
when you're like working with different organizations, like how long is that like relationship normally last?
They all differ. And one of the things I'm trying to change, I guess you would say, within sports, because sports, what they're used to is, all right, season's about to start. Let's bring in a sales trainer to work with our team and show them some like new tips and tricks going into the season. Come in for 2 days. What I know from being on the other side is like, all right, a trainer comes in, people get all hyped up. I'm going to change this. I'm going to do it, just like a New Year's resolution, right? And then a month later, you check in and they just went back to doing everything they were doing before. And so originally I came in as thinking like, I'm going to be that bridge between sales and marketing and bring, those two parties together in sports. But there's an opportunity eventually. I don't think we're there yet. So that didn't end up being like the path I went. So the Titans reached out like, hey, we're looking at sales trainers. I'm like, look, you've been on my staff and we've had sales trainers. I'm like, if I do this, I want it to be a longer term relationship because I don't want to come in for a few days and part of it too, I don't want to be traveling every single week. I'd love for it to be a longer term commitment where we could do some stuff virtual. We go on site to start. So like for me, selfishly, I was like, that's ideally the route I want to go. And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. So put something together. So it was 2 days on site, and then I worked with them on a bi-weekly basis. I think it was bi-weekly, or maybe, yeah, it was bi-weekly. I would do sessions with their team to reinforce the training. And I actually partnered with the guy, like that's like literally his business model. He worked in sports for a little bit, but he works for like some of the top Fortune 500 companies. And what they're used to is bringing a consultant that like transforms their sales processes. It's not just, hey, come for a few days and like get everyone hyped up. It's like, let's build a roadmap over the next 3 to 6 months on how you want to be here. Let's start tackling like the projects and the challenges to get you there. So ideally, like that's the scenario. And I tell people, I'm like, that's ideally the goal of this relationship that I like to get to. It may start with just me doing an initial training and then we see what comes from that. And that has happened with a few already. So it really varies, but my ideal scenario would be, all right, someone sees it, they get it. A few teams have said like, hey, we're on board with what you're talking about. We want to, build something for the long term that's going to be sustainable. Because what happens is like leaders leave, sales reps leave. So even if you did training, even a year later, like a lot of those people are gone now. But how do you leave lasting impact? That they build processes, playbooks, systems that no matter who's in place, like here's our process. And that's more what I'm focused on. Selfish to me, it's great because then I don't have to find as many clients, but it's just less are like looking for that, where most are used to, hey, let's bring a sales trainer for a couple days, or let's do a couple virtual sessions and like, give the team some new tips. Like I'm trying to change that a little. Did you have something? Oh, any other questions?
So I actually have a question for Brittany. So I'm curious, it says you were a teacher at the Houston Independent School District.
Yeah.
Were you teaching before or after you like went to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and what did you teach and how did you get into that?
So I did Arizona Diamondbacks first, like right out of college. And then I worked for Yelp for about 6 or 8 months before he got the job. And then they didn't have an office there. I think they opened one eventually in Austin. But I was like, I've always wanted to be a teacher. Like, I guess I'll go and be a teacher. And it's actually kind of easy there. You do like a 10-day thing and then you're certified and like,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And I had like a mentor that would come like observe me and like do all the things. But I ended up doing first grade for 3 years. And then I moved with my first grade class to second grade. And then they kept me with that same class for third grade. But then I ended up having to do like a second, third grade split my last year. And that like did me in. It was really hard.
Oh.
So I was teaching 2 grades at the exact same time with like zero help.
Oh, wow.
So after that, yeah, I was pregnant with our second daughter and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do something else.
Is that when you moved into the business you guys have now?
No, so my parents, they own a roofing company. And so my mom like needed help. And originally I came in just to help her with like administrative stuff, like billing stuff. But then I was like, who is running your social media, like your Facebook? Who's posting? Because it's horrible. And it was one of our sales guys. And I was like, you need to like take him off his account and give it to me. And then I built my own, I went to school for marketing communications. So I just started like organically posting, doing things. And I was like, then I started taking over like their Google ads, and I like taught myself everything pretty much. And then during COVID, I was like, okay, now there's TikTok, which I still don't know how to use. I was like, I need to learn how to do like every ad, for every social media. So I did a boot camp online with UT. And I learned how to use every platform, all the things. And so that's kind of like what really got me into, I was like, I could do this for other companies. Like I started to have like friends that would come to me like, hey, can you help me like launch Google ads or run some kind of ad? So that's kind of where we joined forces. So
Yeah, so we both kind of had that, and she would get, requests. I always thought about consulting, and we're like, is this two separate businesses? How do we mesh this together? And it's worked really well. But what's interesting is, so she would do these classes at night. So as I'm like catching up on emails, she'd be doing the class, and I got pretty much an education listening to it. And I'd be like, oh, our marketing team would do that better. So I started thinking about the marketing side of the business and how that joins with sales, because I'd be like, oh yeah, like our marketing team does that well, or oh, they're awful at that. Like we need to do more of it. And so I was like, oh, like they could be a support. So I really got into like the marketing side and how bringing those two together can work really well. But yeah, I feel for our kids, because now like when they have homework and like they have a teacher at home too. So they
That's
very
can't beat that.
So.
Yeah,
and I
wow.
make them be in our social media posts.
Oh, yeah.
Videos. Like one was homesick with the flu, and I was like, I don't have a video today, so get over here. We can. So those ones always get higher engagement when there's a kid in it.
Tell them like we have this business, so you can take it over on it. Like, I don't want to do that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we use them where we can in their content. We get good engagement when they're on it.
Right?
When I give a video about here's how you can sell more,
Kids
whatever
are
the business is, she's like your video tanked today. I'm like, because no one wants to hear the truth. I'm giving like knowledge on how people are gonna grow, and they just want to see our kid dancing in the video.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Have you guys ever thought of telling your kids to give the lesson?
Like teach it? Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So my oldest is just like me. My middle one's just like her. And then the youngest one is a mix of the two of them. So the middle one, or the oldest one, she'll come in and say, how many clients have you sold? How much money? I'm like, whoa, like chill. It's like, where are we at with this client? So like, it's like, what happened with this one? Remember? Like, she's like, oh, are you doing another? Because I'll do a lot of videos like in my office. She's like, oh, you about to record another video? And I actually did career day, so I went into their class last week. It's like, yeah, he does all these like videos and stuff. And I had showed them like, oh, I got a YouTube page. And so all these kids are like, because all the kids watch YouTube now, they're like, how many subscribers do you have? I'm like, 27. They're like, what? I'm like, it's new. I'm starting out. Like, well, how many views do you have? I'm like, well, this one had like 100. They're like, oh, yeah. So, but not to teach it yet, but I did. She's like, I've been trying to tell. I know you're coming for career day. I've been trying to tell my friends like what marketing is, and like they don't really get it, and I don't really know how to explain it. So we broke it down for them, but. It's really interesting because I'll hear her now talk about, wanting to start her own business one day. Or like, oh, me and my friend at school, we started our own little mini business. And she'd go through like, well, people want us to, sell it at this price, but I'll never make any money if we sell it at that price. I'm like, oh, all right. Like she's getting it. She's catching the language. And the big thing for me is exposure. So exposing our kids to that. And like, hey, if you want to work for someone, that's great. I'll support you, everything like that, but there is another option. And that's one big thing that was like I was passionate about, is like, how do we expose them to other things? How do we expose people to what that could look like? Because it is scary. It's like, all right, you had this stable career for all this time and now you're out on your own. But stepping into that, it's been interesting. Like people at church, people in my network, they're like, hey, you've inspired me to like go that route. You've inspired me to explore this. Like, hey, I'm going to start my own business one day. And like, that was something I never thought of coming. I'm like, I just want to create a lifestyle for myself. Little did I know the impact that would actually make on other people. What else?
I was gonna ask you, how has that transition been from going from like working with the Marlins to being like more entrepreneurial role? Like what was the most like?
No, I enjoy it because not even the Marlins, but like I worked in baseball, the game with the sport with the most games my entire career. So I'm always at the ballpark. Fortunately they could come to games and like we'd see them sometimes, which is great, but not as much as I probably wanted to. So there was always that like just dad guilt of like you're missing this and like they got this going on. So from that standpoint, the first few weeks it was like people are like, oh, would you ever get back into that? Like, you know, if entrepreneurship doesn't work out, I'm like, one, like, I'm not even thinking that, but two, no, like it was 3 weeks, 3 weeks that we got into it, and my daughter, she comes home after school, she's like, hey, can we hit balls in the backyard? I've never been able, she was 5 at the time. I've never been able to do that because at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, I'm in the office. And so like, those are the things that have been very rewarding. There is the part of like, all right, like now it's up to you. Like you don't have a brand behind you. You don't have all these resources. We got to get creative. We got to be scrappy. But I've grown so much in these 9 months than I have at any point throughout my 17-year career working in sports, just because like you have to flex a new muscle, you have to think different, you have to think like a business person, kind of like we did. So like I've loved it. It's definitely like scary at times, like, all right, where's the next one to come from? And then someone reaches out, like, hey, like, you know, I've been watching your, that's the interesting part, like posting on LinkedIn. You don't know who sees it, you don't know who likes it, because not everyone likes it. Like, yeah, I've been watching your videos for 5 years. I'm like, really? Like, I don't even know, like, you never mention anything. Like, but hey, it's helped me, you know, sell more tickets, or it's helped me, and I want to introduce you to my boss, and potentially we could bring you in or something like that. So that's the fun, the rewarding part of it. And then just the time getting to spend with the girls and be home. I can pick them up from school every day and things like that. Like those are things I didn't get to do early in their life.
You guys had any international organizations, sports organizations reach out?
Not yet. That's one thing I think about though, because
That's the weirdest thought of this week.
yeah. 'Cause, I mean, there's so much that's untapped here, but internationally, yeah. I mean, assuming they speak English, because I'm not bilingual, but I do have people I could partner with, and we are looking at opportunities that people that we can, like in Europe or, you know, Latin American countries, ways that we can consult and do things like that too. So not today, but I think that's on the roadmap.